How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for downloading the latest edition of the Doc and Jock podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, he is the all-star of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, Adam the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? What's happening?
Are you turning over a new leaf? What's going on here? I'm the all-star? Normally you're coming in with your own intro music.
I'm the owner, duh. I'm the guy that's like, hey, I'm going to put out a tweet, get everybody all riled up. You guys are the all-stars. I'm just the guy that's just the puppet master making it all happen.
I see how this works. So you're the one behind the scenes pulling all the strings.
You got it. What's
you're
up,
like,
sir?
Dance for me. Nothing, man. How you been?
Man, it's been a good week. Just kind of watching the Tigers, watching some things going on with college football, kind of seeing if anybody's decommitted from Michigan State. So far, so good. I'm liking the recruiting classes, liking the talks regarding the Detroit Tigers and where they may go at the trade deadline. I'm kind of feeling a little sting of the disrespect from the national media and some gambling sites regarding what they think about Michigan State. But in the end, it's always a fun opportunity to record a podcast with you. I love the fact that some of the fun stuff that we do beforehand, and it's a fun time.
Yeah, man, this is a highlight of my week. Like, it's great because we record. For those who don't know, we record on Hump Day, and this is the best way to break up my week. And it is like the only thing that keeps me on track during the week. Like, I'm all over the place all the time. Like, I need an agenda. I need an assistant. You know how you need an assistant because you're so busy? I need an assistant too because I'm all over the place. I have no idea what's going on half the time. And this is what keeps me focused. I love this podcast.
Yes. Now, I know we got a rundown, and I know we had said some things beforehand, so I want to change it up just a little bit to intro. Cool. We can maybe kind of touch on the Tigers and college football and the Red Wings, but a couple things happened to me that I do think were interesting, and I do believe I was hustled at a restaurant. I texted you, and I said, okay, I had an opportunity to take the wife out on a date, and it was a really interesting, fun time. Went out by Lakeshore Drive there, the Nautical Mile, had an opportunity to, sit down by the water, have a date and things like that. And I kind of feel like it's happened, this certain thing that waitresses and waiters do, I feel like it's happened before, and I feel like it's a dirty hustle. And I didn't say nothing, but I do believe going forward, I would do something different. And let me set the scene. Here's what happened. So we ordered a drink at the bar before we got to the table, because there's an hour and a half wait. You go on a Friday, you're sitting there, you're like, damn, we're not going to get a table right away. I'm not a VIP. I'm not going to pull I'm the doc from the podcast card to get a table.
Should.
Exactly, I should. And they'll be like, okay, get out. We've heard some of that nonsense you've said about every single thing that you guys have talked about. So we get a drink, and we get the prices. Obviously, it was about $11 for 2 drinks. We sit down, and the missus orders the same thing again. Now, they bring it to the table, and it's a mistake. And it's not what she had ordered. So she's like, oh, this isn't right. This isn't, there's bubbles in this. Iced tea, lemonade, and Tito's shouldn't have bubbles. And the lady's like, oh, sorry. My apologies. No problems. No worries. She takes it, then brings back a larger size drink and puts it down. And she's like, we're sorry. They made you a bigger drink. So the wife tastes it, and she's like, okay, no problem. Now comes time. The food was great. We had a good time, good ambiance, good scene, relaxing after a long week of work, having some cocktails. So we get the bill, and the drink is $9. We reference back to the bar where we ordered before, where we got 2 drinks. I got a summer shandy, and she got a drink for $11.
Mm-hmm.
So in our minds, the gears start grinding. It's like, wait a minute, we didn't, my summer shandy's not $2. It could have been. I mean, we could have gotten a receipt. But I tell the lady, I'm like, look, we had gotten a couple drinks for $11. This is $9. Is this right? Because it seems like her drink probably would have been in the $5 to $6 range. So just a couple bucks, but just to make sure. So she goes and she comes back and is like, well, the manager told me that based on what they gave you, if we would have punched that in, it would have been $1 more. So I'm like, wait a minute here. You know, it wasn't.
This sounds like the fishiest thing ever.
Right, exactly.
This sounds like there's some actual buffoonery and some shenanigans going on.
Exactly. It's like the basic mistake we could have made was I could have pulled a receipt from the bar when we got there and said, "Look, this is the same price. This is what we want." But they had given her a bigger drink. We get it.
You didn't ask for the bigger drink.
Exactly. And so I feel like that's where the hustle comes in. It's like, oh, you could mess up the drink, bring something else in, charge a ridiculous amount, and get a couple extra bucks on your tab. And so I'm like, next time what I would do is I would have sent that back and said, no, I don't want it at all. And just send it back and just start over with something else so that we know the prices. And if you look on bills, if you go to these restaurants, they don't put some of the prices on the menu on a lot of things. So is it weird now? So for protocol, should you ask for prices of things when you go to the bar these days?
I don't know.
See, because if you look at it, it tells you special. If you look at menus,
I wouldn't be upset with you if you did.
Okay,
let me put it to you like this. So I had something similar happen. Right, me and my buddy go out on a Saturday night. Right, we end up taking in. I think it was the Germany Sweden game. Took large parts of that in, the end of it, anyways. And then we stayed, and I think we watched a couple baseball games. I don't know. Either way, I was hammered. He was hammered. Long and short of it, we get our bill. And I look at him and he looks at me. And normally when we go out drinking, he's 3 for my every 2, right? Like I can't keep up with him. It's usually, I'll drink 2, he'll drink 3. So then I'm at 4, he's at 6. I'm at 8, he's at 12. Is normally how it is. We get our bill. I've got 9 beers on my bill. He's got 10. So right off the bat, I'm like, there's something wrong here. Like, for one, I did not have 9 beers. And these are tall boys. So, like, I would be dead. Right?
Right, exactly.
Like, I would be dead. So there's no way I drink 9 beers. And on top of that, there's no way he drank 10. Because if I drink 9, then he's drinking, what would we say here? Like 15 beers? Because just the way we drink. So there's no way in hell that this is correct. And then I call her out on it. I was like, so I had 9 beers. You mean to tell me I had 9 beers? Like, I know what my tolerance is, and 9 beers is not my tolerance. Like I would be dead. Like, I would be dead. Like, there's no way I'm drinking that much in that short of time. Maybe over the long haul, but there's no way I'm drinking that much in that short of time. So she's like, yeah, that's what you had. I was like, I don't think that's what I had. So I start doing the math in my head and how many beers I had. And, it gets a little bit fuzzy because you've been drinking for a little bit now. But I could have swore to God I
6.
maybe had,
5 or 6.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's the point. Now, notoriously at adult entertainment places, they would do that. That's why they tell you never, ever get drunk there. Mm-hmm. But I can understand. And look, you and I are not, hardcore conspiracy theorists here, but we can assume that by doing that, you jack up the profits, especially if it's a slow night. And especially when a waitress is needing tips, when you jack up the price, people are going to assume that you're going to tip 15 to 20%. So I'm like, you know what? From now on, you just got to ask, what's the price? And even if you go to the bar early on, ask for a receipt. And
you know what? The moment the waitress does that to me, like instantly, her tip gets cut in half. And I'm going to take care of you, especially if I've been there for a little bit. And at this particular location, we had come in right around shift change, and she had got moved to a different section. So we said, hey, we want to stay with you. Can we just move to your other section? So we got up and we physically moved.
Yeah.
And just like to be with you as our server. So why are you going to turn around and try to stick it to us? Like, it made no sense to me, right? Like, this was the dumbest thing you could have did because I was going to take care of you. The moment you did that, your tip goes from, it was going to be over 20%. It was probably going to be closer to 30, 35%. Your tip instantly goes to 18, and then I'm going to cut it down even more. So I think I ended up leaving her like 15% on the bill, and
exactly.
I was like, screw you.
Yeah,
you know?
And that's what happens is that you leave a bad taste in the customer's mouth, and you leave a bad memory, a lasting impression of like, was there shenanigans going on? Because had it happened once, I could understand why you would do something like that. Look, drinks, I understand it's not about the money, it's about the principle. But it's happened so much that it just starts to seem like, okay, there's something a little bit shady going on. And so that's why I brought it to your attention. And so that's something that we can do is just ask for the receipts. And if they make a mistake, just send it back. I'm sorry, I don't want this anymore. And just take it off the bill, and we'll go to something else.
Yeah.
How have your experiences been going out? Because I definitely have told the wife, I'm like, look, a lot of people have ADD. They're not remembering our orders. And it's just at too high a volume to be something where it's a trend. It's really ridiculous.
Recently, I've had some of the worst service ever. Me and the wife went out one day, and we had really good service. It was so good. Like, we got into the car, and I was like, wow, that was a really good waitress. Like, really, really good. And she was like, yeah. I was like, we've had really bad service lately. Like, I'm talking, we've gone out like 5 or 6 times, and 4 or 5 of those times, it's been absolutely horrible.
What's been happening? What were the mistakes you've experienced? Wrong orders, missing some...
Bringing the wrong food, not bringing everything, getting drinks messed up. The thing that drives me absolutely up a wall, right? If we go out for breakfast, right? And I'm drinking coffee, and I drink a lot of coffee. Like, either you're going to just bring me a pot and set it on the table, or you're going to come back quite a bit. I hate when my cup gets dry and you don't come back and check on me. Like, I understand if it's busy and you just like, okay, cool, I'll get to you in a second. All right, fine. As long as you, like, in your passing, say, hey, can I get your refill? Can I do any of this? Can I do any of that? I'll say, yeah, sure, or no, I'm okay for right now, or when you get a chance. Just acknowledge what's going on the table. None of that. That drives me absolutely crazy. Or if we go out to the bar, right, I'm drinking a Diet Coke. And my Diet Coke, it's just ice in a straw in the glass. Like, can you refill this? And like, I'm sitting there, not for like 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes. I'm talking like 15, maybe 20 minutes. And I'm like, can I get a refill? Like something, like I've already drank all my water, something.
And I tell my wife this all the time now. We've been dating now together for 10 years. And throughout the course of the entire 10 years, whenever we go out, she makes these orders and changes up the item. And I'm like, dude, just order it as is, because when you change up the item...
She's got like a food allergy, though.
No, I know. She has issues. And actually, to give an update on that, she was like, screw it, I'm tired of this. So she started eating gluten, and she's fine.
She's fine?
She's fine. So
my mom does the same thing now.
She's like, screw this, I'm not doing that whole gluten-free nonsense. And so I don't know if it was after the pregnancy, something happened where after we had the second baby, her tolerance for some things and the way she reacted to eating just was off. But after 3 years, she tried gluten-free. Thank God it wasn't that, because it was torture, man. Gluten-free.
She can still put the booze away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good old Polak right there. That's them good Polish jeans, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, the bill...
Screw you, Costco, taking our hot dog away.
For an example, the bill is $60 and 40 of it's her drink it. I'm like, honey, she's like, is it okay? I'm like, yeah, it's okay, but could you go down from like 4 to 2? But
cool.
anyways,
I get my bill. My bill's $65.
Yeah.
And 50 of it's my booze.
It's the booze, yeah. You Polish people just rack up the bills for us, man, the tip. So I tell her, look,
bunch of drunks in our family.
It's like you go to, I want a veggie omelet, no mushrooms, no onions, this on the side. I'm like, honey, guaranteed it's going to be messed up. And 9 times out of 10 it is, because everybody's ADD. And when you add like 2 and 3 different changes, I like the restaurants nowadays, and some of them are doing it where they just go, this is the menu, we're not changing it. So it's too bad, because there's no substitutes.
Or what about like, have you gone to Panera lately?
No.
I hate Panera.
Really?
I just want you to know, I hate Panera. But my wife loves it, right?
Okay.
So we went to Panera the other day. She was in town, and I was in between jobs, and we had to grab lunch real quick and wanted to do it together. So we went to Panera, and we walk into Panera, and Panera's like lined up out the door. But they have this little kiosk where you can like punch your own order in.
Oh,
and
God.
as you punch your own order in, you can tell them what you want on. Like, I ended up getting a salad, so you can tell them what you want on your salad, or you can subtract things from your salad, and then you can add other things. It was really, really cool. So that way, there's like, you're not screwing it up, right? There's no way you can screw this up, because I just put it all in myself. So the kitchen's getting. So as long as the kitchen doesn't screw it up, it should come out 100%. I thought that was really interesting, and they didn't screw my order up. So that was cool.
Good. It's good. How are you and the missus?
Oh, good, man. We ended up getting into a fight. You ever get into a fight with your wife? Like, you have no idea how you got there, but you just ended up there. We were talking about something, and the next thing you know, she's like, why are you picking a fight with me? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like calm and cool, and you know how like sometimes I can get all revved up.
Yeah.
I was normal.
Just talking.
Like, yeah. I was trying to understand what she was making a point, and I was trying to connect, A and B to get to how she ended up at C. I was like, so what does A and B have to do with C? And I was just trying to follow this along, and I was like talking back to her about it, like, so what you're saying is this has to do with this, and you're worried about this? And she was like, why do you have an attitude with me? What's your problem? And I was like, wait, what just happened? How did we end up here? And like,
why?
When we get into an argument, I love the mini drop. Why? When we get into an argument, it's not like one of those things where like you're mad at each other for 15 minutes. Like, no, this is like 2.5, 3 hours, especially like if I'm at the other job, because like I got to dedicate myself, pay attention to what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
It's like we can't even like hash this out. So like there was a point there where I had like a 15-minute window, and I was like, hey, I don't know what happened. My bad. I'm sorry. Love you.
You haven't tried to diffuse and just go, oh, sorry, my bad, and just move on, try to just get out of it as fast as possible?
I was trying to figure out how I got there. I have no idea how I got there. By the time I figured out that I was in this, she was like, I gotta go. And she hung up on me. And I was like, for real, I sat there in my car and I was just like, that's the noise I made.
What'd I do?
Like it was just like this throat noise where I was like, I have no clue what just happened. How did we end up here? I have no idea. I was perplexed.
See, what I do is when that starts to happen, I start getting mad and then just go, look, I'm not doing this or that. I'm going to stay at the office for an extra couple hours. And that is the worst when the wife is waiting on you to get home to take some of the energy off of her with the kids, because the kids now are 6 and 4 and they got a lot of energy. And so when she's there with them all day, so fine, you want to pick a fight with me? I'm coming home an hour and a half later.
Right.
Then, and work ends at 6.
Work.
Yeah, work. I'm supposed to get home at 6. I get home 7:30, and she gets the hint.
Yeah.
So you got to try your absolute best to avoid the minefield. That's all it is. Marriage and being in a long-term relationship is just avoiding the minefields.
But what happens when you don't realize that you're approaching the minefield, and next thing you know, you're in it. You're like 3 miles into the minefield, and you still have 5 more to go, and you're like, "How did I even? What just happened?"
Exactly,
dude. That was yesterday. That was yesterday for me, dude. Nuts.
Man. So when you're at the bar with the buddy, what kind of things popped up in the conversation?
Usually which waitress we think is hot and we would like to bang. Because right? Guy talk. Sports. A lot of sports. You got sports on like 15. You go to Arthur and Jacobs.
Yeah.
They're like TVs everywhere, right?
Exactly.
So
golf, Tigers,
talking about
soccer, World Cup.
All the time with what golf clubs I want to get, which new ones, because which ones are going to sit there and take me from shooting 110 and bring me underneath 100. So yeah, which golf clubs are going to save my game, because that's going to help. But yeah. So yeah, it's always about golf clubs, sports. Good chicks, it's just guy talk, man. Guy talk, just guys being guys, laughing at other people that are there, because, of course, we're paragons of success and wealth. Right.
All right, good. No, that's good stuff, man.
I'm back in my bedroom at my mom's house. Don't worry about me. I'm successful.
All right, let's get to the Tigers. We're getting close to the All-Star break. The tough part with the Tigers, is we all, when we say, let's sell, well, the stuff that they're selling isn't that good anymore. Unfortunately, with Al Avila, you know that he wanted to wait until the trade deadline to try to move Boyd, Liriano, Fires. Well, here's the problem. Only Fires has been worth a darn in the last couple weeks, so it makes it really, really tough when you see Liriano getting blasted, giving up, 5-6 runs in an inning, and then you got Boyd who can't get out of his own way and throwing 40 pitches in an inning. It's just really, it's unfortunate because you keep reading articles where you got the Mariners scouting, you got the Dodgers in town looking at Fulmer. It just isn't looking like right now, especially in a buyer's market, that the Tigers are going to make a significantly impactful move, because on the other end, all the other general managers are going to be like, whoa, Matt Boyd, he isn't worth, a top 100 prospect. He's going to be, worth somebody just outside of it. The organizations that might even be willing to call don't even have as much as we would want. I mean, right now the hot talk is Manny Machado and the Yankees, and where is he going to go? Is there an opportunity for maybe the Orioles to trade him somewhere, get something for him, and then try to get him back in the offseason? That's hot talk. That's awesome. And we're trying to talk about Nick Castellanos and snubs and Joe Jimenez in the All-Star game. It's just something with the Tigers right now where you go, the sizzle went out of the operation in terms of the performances lately with the crew.
They ended up dropping, 9 in a row.
That hurt.
And
at the worst time,
happened,
right.
Yeah, once that happened, it was, all right, cool. So let's get back to our regular summer programming that doesn't include baseball. Let's go outside. Let's go hang out at the beach. Somebody's got fireworks. Let's set all of those off at midnight to make Adam very upset and not get any sleep that night. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where we're at right now. It's like the doldrums of summer. Tiger baseball for the longest time would get you through your summer. It kind of bridged that gap all the way up into Lions season or into college football season, whatever you were kind of a huge fan of, or both. Right now, you're kind of stuck. We're waiting for the trade deadline, really and truly, and you're trying to figure out what you can get in return. What would constitute a successful trade? Like, we're going to say Al Avila is going to give up, Shane Green and Mike Fiers. What do you have to get back in return this season to constitute it being a success? Because if you look at what he did last year, he revamped this entire minor league system by trading away pieces like Justin Verlander, Justin Wilson, or if you talk to him, was it Justin Thompson? I think he refers to him as all the time. He always gets them confused. JD Martinez. You traded away all these guys. And when JD Martinez got traded, we were highly critical of that We did not think that he got back what he should have. And it turns out what he got in return looks to be a very good player. Somebody who's going to make it to this roster, not this year, maybe next year or in 2 years, and will be an impact player. But what constitutes a successful trade season, I guess, for you at this time? Because I'm looking at this, and I want something similar to what you got last year. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out there and you need to get 3 top 100 prospects, but what I'm saying is you have to go out there and you've got to get some high-end prospects for some of these guys that you have. And you've got a girth of trade pieces here. It's just, like you said, they're faltering at the exact wrong time. You need Matt Boyd firing on all cylinders. You need Mike Fiers firing on all cylinders. You need Lariano going at it. You need, if you're going to trade Nick Castellanos, it would have helped if he was in the All-Star game because you could say, hey, he's an all-star right fielder. I mean, we all know what he is in right field. He's a butcher, but the dude's got a bat, and he can swing it hard, and he can swing it heavy. And you got Jose Iglesias, who makes circus sketches, and he's been really productive. He's probably, out of all the guys I just named, he's probably been your most productive player right now. And I don't think going into the season we would have expected that. I mean, his last couple games, he's hitting above 300, extra base hits, stealing bases. He's doing everything the right way. He had that one little flub earlier in the year, got a talking to by Gardenhire, and next thing you know, he's out here and he's playing miraculous baseball. So what constitutes a good trade for you?
Well, at this point in time, when everyone's looking at what's going on in the minors and what the organization has, there is a lack of depth at infield and lack of depth at outfield. Basically, infielders and outfielders on the Tigers, there's not a lot of organizational depth. So you're going to have to restock that because there's been an emphasis on arms.
We do have second basemen and we do have shortstops.
Yes, there's a plethora of those.
Got a ton of them.
Yes, but in terms of the rest of the positions, there's a struggle. And you look across the board, there's been a lot of articles regarding the mistakes the Tigers have made and where the organization should have done things. But here's the thing that I would like.
You want positional players.
I want positional players,
okay.
Yes. And then I would like, if possible, if Jordan Zimmerman can continue to have the outings that he has, if you can kind of eat some of the money and move him, that helps with the rebuild, that helps to shed salary, and that helps to potentially allow the Tigers some flexibility going forward. But for me, the way I'm looking at it is how many of the guys on the current roster are you going to let go of? Is it going to be Castellanos, Iglesias, maybe even Joe Jimenez? Is it going to be somebody who's a starter? Is it going to be Fulmer? So I'm looking at, just in terms of the sheer number, I'm hoping that there's a couple opportunities to get 2 prospects for 1 Tiger player, but it feels like to me, based on a buyer's market, that the most that you can get in terms of talent is not going to be trading anybody off of the 25-man roster at the major league level. It's going to be just, plucking 1 or 2 guys that are highly touted that you've drafted or are currently in the minors that could get you something. But for me, right now, my feeling in terms of what's going to come back is just going to be wait and see. We're going to get some numbers, maybe like, oh, he's a number 5 prospect in an organization outside of the top 100. I don't see a lot coming back right now in July. I just don't.
Do you see maybe a Matt Manning or a Bo Burrows possibly getting traded? Now, these are guys who are highly thought of around Major League Baseball, and they're top prospects in the Tigers organization right now.
See, I think the tough part is where the rebuild at. It's just at the beginning, and you still got guys that you want to bring up, that are from the minors. And what you're seeing now is some of these guys are starting to move from AA to AAA, and it's nice to see some progression. But here's the thing in terms of trades, is you want to make a trade to improve the ball club. And I just don't feel like right now that other general managers are going to want to really help the Detroit Tigers at this point in time because the players are not really that good. There's not really a demand in a buyer's market. You know what I mean?
See, what I could see happening, though, is you taking either a Matt Manning or a Bo Burrows and finding some other organization, and you said you wanted positional players, and I agree. They need some positional players just because the depth isn't there with this team and with this organization. So you trade from a position of power, and starting pitching more specifically, is a position of power for this team. So you trade away one of these young pieces, one of these young talented guys that baseball perspective is high on, or that the scouts are high on, and they feel like you've got something there. You trade a positional player for another, or you trade a pitcher for a positional player in somebody else's organization who hopefully is relevant, is a top 100 player. I could see something like that happening, and that would be a win-win, I think, for both teams. You might have to throw in, say, a Shane Green, or you might have to throw in a Lariano, but you're giving up two pitchers, one for today and one for tomorrow, and you're going to get your, we'll say, left fielder of tomorrow. And he's in all of Major League Baseball, he's a top 10 prospect. I mean, I think you would do that, and I would do that, because I don't know how you feel about Bo Burrows or Matt Manning. They're good. They're cool. I don't know. I'm not real high on those guys. I feel like they have Jacob Turner written all over them, you know?
Yeah.
Guys who we hear about, and they're going to be the second coming of Christ, and then they don't ever really get here. Or when they do make it to the show, they're not very good. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with those two guys specifically. So you could maybe, I don't know what the book is on them. How often do you read Baseball Perspective? Unless I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm not picking that up, So you take one of those guys, and you take, like I said, a Lariano, or you can even take Mike Fiers if you wanted to, and you go out there and you get whoever it is that's gonna be playing your left field or your right field in the next couple years. How come Nick Castellanos hasn't transitioned to first base? Is this organization just being stubborn right now? This blows my mind, because you had the prime opportunity to do this when Miguel Cabrera went down, and yet no, he's going to be our right fielder. You're calling up Jim Adducci, and I said that wrong, didn't I? Jim Adducci, right? There we go, better. You're calling him up, and leave all this in here, dude, by the way. Just leave it all in there. Let people laugh at me. It's cool. You're bringing him up, and you're going to have him play first base. Why can't you put Nick there? I don't understand. It blows my mind.
Gardenhire told you they want him to learn the position, and they want to give him the whole year to learn it.
But so Victor's going to go away at the end of the year, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Miguel Cabrera, unless you can find somebody who wants him while he's breaking down and he's costing you over $30 million, nobody wants that. So you're going to have Miguel Cabrera. Miguel Cabrera is going to still be your first baseman.
That's what's going to happen.
He gets hurt all the time.
He doesn't want to transition to be a DH, so that's what's going to happen.
So who's going to be your DH? The job of the DH is just to go hit. Miguel Cabrera is not a great fielding first baseman, and Nick Castellanos is even worse in right field. So why don't you move him to first base? Let him catch. You got two heavy bats. Let them get some work in all the time and figure out a right fielder. It makes no sense to me. I feel like the organization is just so stubborn.
Very stubborn.
They're making a huge mistake here. This could be a year of learning and could set you up for the future, yet you don't want to get out of your own way. All that being said, is Nick still on this team? Do you have any untouchables? Is he the one guy who you wouldn't trade?
I say right now he's probably the biggest trade chip you have.
I think so too.
I think he should be the one that's shopped.
Him or Michael Fulmer.
Yeah, both of them. And that's my opinion, is that there is no untouchable on the team. Anybody and everybody at this point in time, when you have a rebuild at this level, you got to start and get as much talent as you can for the future. And so that ensures that you keep losing, because you want number 1 and number 2 picks. You want the organization to not really win, but it's unfortunate in that, you got a guy in Castellanos where he might be even at a point now. Here's the problem, is that everybody's not exactly at the set spot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Michael Fulmer, if you wait another year, probably can get you more in a year. Nick Castellanos, probably in another year, will be a better person playing the defense in the field. So that's the problem, is that everybody is a year away from basically being at the top of their potential in terms of getting something back for them.
So let me ask you this then. Next season, right, we're both assuming that they're going to be drafting
top
5, maybe top 10, right, depending on how things shake out. All right, so next season, you're coming into the year. Are Nick Castellanos and Michael Fulmer another year more development? Are they now your cornerstones? Because if they're your cornerstones, that means you're not trading those guys. And these are going to be the two guys, the two pieces that you're going to look to build your team around. That mean, Michael Fulmer could be the ace of your rotation, right? He could be the guy who, when other guys start to come up, when your Alex Faedo starts coming up, or your Casey Mize, when they come up, these are going to be the guys who they learn under, like he learned under Justin Verlander.
If it's one or the other,
Nick Castellanos is going to be the guy who's in your everyday lineup.
If it's one or the other, who would you want to keep?
Because of the way this organization is structured with their minor league system,
Keep Fulmer.
I would keep Castellanos,
because you have a plethora of arms.
Yeah, because and I feel like they might be. I feel like the arms that you have that are coming up might be better than Fulmer. I don't know. I think they might be. I think with Fulmer, there's that risk of injury, and that's what scares me. Okay. At any given point, now you can say this about any pitcher, at any given point, his arm could go boom. And he's already dealt with enough elbow issues through, his first season and a half, 2 seasons in the league. I don't know how long he's going to be able to go. So I'd probably trade him.
Okay, now I'll play this clip from Chris Archer, and it kind of sets the scene regarding the issues with the All-Star process. I think, that a lot of people are talking about it, and they paid attention to it when they discovered that Nick Castellanos was left off the team and Joe Jimenez was selected for the Detroit Tigers. Now, there's been some big snubs, especially on the Rays as well. They had a pitcher that was leading in ERA, and he doesn't even make the team. I think his last name is Snell. So let's play this clip from Chris Archer, and we'll talk about what you think regarding Castellanos and Jimenez for the Detroit Tigers in terms of the All-Star game.
Guys, I have an issue. My teammate, my close friend, Blake Snell, was not a unanimous selection for the All-Star game. That's a joke. Something like that can't happen. He leads the league in ERA. That means he's given up the fewest amount of runs per 9 innings out of any starting pitcher in the league. Now, there's a way that he can get in as an alternate or a replacement or a backup, but he's not that. He should be in the running to start the game. He's extremely talented. He's been doing it all year. There's no reason that this should happen. Players, coaches, managers, we have to do a better job with the selection process so we can put the best talent out on the field for the fans in the Midsummer Classic. If you didn't have him on your ballot, I hope that next year you take it a little bit more serious and put in the due diligence, because this is important.
Makes a good point. I mean, the other point that people are making is when the vote takes place is maybe a little bit too early. Maybe they could take into account, when they take this vote for the players and maybe make it like this week ahead of the All-Star game. But there's logistics involved. So I don't know if you can find a perfect process to select a team. There's always going to be snubs, and Chris Archer, sticking up for his teammate.
I think you need to limit the fan vote, because last time I checked, Miguel Cabrera, after his torn bicep, was still third to play first base. Like, he was the third guy to get selected to play first base. Like, he hasn't played in a month and a half, 2 months, because he has a torn bicep, yet he's still being ranked and people are still voting for him, which makes no sense to me. How are you going to vote for a guy who can't physically play the position? So I think the fan vote needs to be limited, because a lot of times fans just vote for names. They don't know. Honestly, they don't know what the hell's going on. They just watch games. I mean, when you go to a baseball game, how drunk do you get?
Not that drunk, but
normally you take your nephew with you, so you got to be semi-responsible.
Right.
But the average fan usually has 3-4 beers. Nobody's really keeping track of anything. They're just kind of there for the ambiance and everything else that's going on. If you go down to the Tigers game, you probably are playing around on the Ferris wheel and you're hanging out in the beer garden. Because I know when I go, I'm hanging out in the beer garden and I'm kind of taking the game in. It's more for everything else that's going on. When I want to watch the game, I'm usually watching it at home. And I'm kind of sitting there following along, keeping track of different things. And I'm really invested when I'm at home. The average fan, I don't think is as invested as I get, nor as invested as you get. I think the fan vote needs to be limited, because I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. I really don't. Like, Joe Jimenez getting in over Nick Castellanos doesn't make a lot of sense for me, because Jimenez has been good, but I don't think he's there right now. I think Nick Castellanos, if you have to select one guy from this team, it should be either Nick Castellanos or maybe Michael Fulmer. You could even make an argument that it could be Zimmerman, because he's putting up the best numbers of his career right now.
It's so interesting with the All-Star game in that I understand the logistics. I understand why A.J. Hinch picks Jimenez. You needed a reliever. So he went and picked up somebody that was performing well at the time. But at the same time, Nick Castellanos probably, I would say, is not an all-star. Look, I understand he's got a big bat, but in the same token, I'm not a guy that really likes to put one-dimensional players in the All-Star game. I want a guy that has a specific skill set and is a complete player. So the issue is if you put in Nick Castellanos, do you take any of the starters out? No. Do you take out Sin-Chu Chu? No. I mean, I think Castellanos and him are pretty much equal. So A.J. Hinch had a tough decision. He went with a need for the team. And so Nick Castellanos, to me, is a great player. He's on the verge of being an all-star. Is he there yet? No, he's not a complete player. And so I do believe that there's room for improvement for Nick Castellanos. In terms of the all-star selection process, there's always going to be ways in terms of who takes what seriously. Maybe some media has some gripes and things like that. But in the end, the fans vote. And even if they're drunk, I understand sometimes it's a popularity contest, and there's been some legendary calls and some people that have been put into all-star games that you would say, oh, that's terrible. But in the end, I like the process as is. There's always going to be one or two players that you go, But for me, Nick Castellanos is not an all-star, and probably in the grand scheme of things, if there was a change, not every team deserves to have an all-star.
The only reason I like it the way it is because it gives us something to talk about. Who would you vote if you had to pick one player from this Tigers team? Who would be the guy that you would
Nobody.
put in then?
Nobody. 60% of people on our Twitter page said that Jimenez didn't even deserve it.
But you have to put somebody in. You have to pick somebody because your team needs to be represented. So who are you going to put in? Who should that go to? Because you can't make the argument that Jimenez deserves it.
Nope.
You can't. I mean, I think the only two guys it really comes down to is either A, Michael Fulmer, or B, Nick Castellanos. Looking at what Fulmer has done this year so far, I would be real hesitant to give him the nod over Castellanos. I think Nick Castellanos has carried this team, and yeah, they're losing, but I think he has been probably one of the most productive players on this team this season. I mean, you got to remember, you don't have Miguel Cabrera there, right? You've had a ton of injuries with your pitching staff. Your bullpen's a constant work in progress. Welcome to Detroit, everybody. Welcome to Detroit. Victor Martinez, good God. Victor Martinez. I think me, you, and Zuzu could hit the ball harder and further than Victor Martinez.
Yeah, right?
It's been so bad. So bad. So what do you really have? I mean, Jose Iglesias? I don't think so. But maybe. You know, I mean, he would probably be the only other guy who would be worthy, and that's just because he's been hot lately. So you have to put somebody in. Who are you going to put in? Shouldn't be Joe Jimenez.
All right, let's take our first time out. We can summarize by saying the All-Star process can be tweaked a little bit. Maybe, according to Chris Archer, he wants the writers to take it more seriously and really consider, because here's the thing, too. Because a lot of these talented major league players have some things in their contract where if they become an all-star, they get a little bit more scratch as well. And it also helps, in terms of a player's confidence too, because Nick Castellanos was professional, but I hope he takes it as motivation going forward. But that, not being acknowledged by other coaches and the players as well, maybe leads your confidence to dip just a little bit, but hopefully not enough to make it really significant. But I do think the All-Star process is okay. The only thing I would change is not every team needs to be represented, especially when you got teams openly tanking. It's just one of those things where, not every team has to be represented. And maybe that would have provided an opportunity for both Jimenez and Castellanos if another team did not get represented. All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We'll talk about some gambling odds in college football, Michigan State. We'll talk about the class of the Big Ten, Ohio State, and if there is a chance that they don't represent the Big Ten next year. And we'll talk about that, as well as talking about some Red Wings in the second half of this podcast. Stay with us. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. All right, Adam, let me tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. Why do we use Podomatic? Since September of 2013, we've recorded over 1,000 podcasts on this network. And we've only used one host site, Podomatic. We record, we have fun, we tell stories, we complain, we have great sports debate. We take the audio and we upload it quickly to Podomatic so that all of our listeners across the country and even overseas can find us. We can't get and book great guests unless we're able to provide quality links, great audio. So if you're looking to start a brand new project, a brand new podcast, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com. You know what's something funny I saw on Twitter earlier this week?
What's that?
We've talked about it several times, the debate between Michigan fans regarding those that are like fanatics and those that are just die hard with all the hype and things like that. The realists versus those that say, hey, Michigan's the greatest, the big block M, things like that.
I laugh at those people.
Well, it was funny in that I saw some people message us and said, hey, where was all the hype in the past? What are you guys talking about? Nobody expected Michigan to win the Big Ten ever in the last 4 years. And then I just quickly put up a thing.
What?
Yeah, a couple people said, nobody messaged me and said, what are you guys talking about, all this hype for Michigan? And I said, I just pulled up a Bleacher Report article where after Harbaugh's first 10-win year, people thought that they were going to win the Big Ten and had a chance to go to the National College Football Playoff. What are you talking about? There's always hype around Michigan. It's always there if you look for it. But there is actually,
Even if you don't look for it, it'll just smack you in the face.
Yeah.
It's always there.
Yeah, there's a growing debate between those that say, look, Harbaugh needs time, needs to kind of get his people in, needs to find his quarterback, and that are still patient. And there are others nationally that are writing that Harbaugh now is on the hot seat. So this dichotomy is really wild to read in that you got this fragmented fan base. Well, I guess some people have called me out by saying that, feeling like I'm stirring the pot. Okay, it's not fragmented. You guys are all a Michigan fan together.
You do stir the pot.
Yeah.
But no, you're right.
It's two camps.
Yes,
Two
it
camps.
swings heavy from one end to the other end.
There are two distinct camps right now of Michigan fans. The ones that are like, we're on the path. We're happy. We like what we're seeing. Shea Patterson's on board. We like what we see with the defense. We like what we see potentially with the offense. And then you got others that are like, damn it, this year, if we're not in Indy, we're going down to Ann Arbor. We're requesting Jim Harbaugh to be fired. And I know you're one of them. It's really interesting what's going on now.
Maybe not be fired, but like there should be some heat on his seat.
Should he be on the hot seat right now? Jim Harbaugh should be on the hot seat, right?
We're going into what, year 4 now?
Yeah,
year 4 of the Jim Harbaugh experience. And how many quarterbacks does this guy need, right? Has he built or done anything with any of the guys he's recruited? Because I really feel like every quarterback he has, he sat there and he's got off a school transfer.
And here's what I want to say about that: he is already on the hot seat. There are people that will universally love Michigan and Harbaugh forever, no matter what he does. If he wins
they're
9 to
sycophants.
Exactly, but there are now a growing number of people who I see on Twitter who message us at Detroit Podcast who are like, "Show me something." And it's growing. And I can tell you that we have the pulse in that when people message us, we definitely are in line with what starts getting reported and things like that. So when people message us, I don't discount it. I don't poo-poo it. And people are not happy with what's going on at Michigan, especially when you have every year you got Ohio State being the favorite to win the Big Ten. And every single year, the national pub is all about Ohio State. And every year, in essence, I do believe Michigan fan is tired of thinking that Jim Harbaugh is Urban Meyer's bitch. And that's where it's at now. And I do think that when you're paying a guy that much, you don't want your coach to be viewed like that. And right now, Jim Harbaugh is Urban Meyer's bitch.
So I'll say this, okay?
I like saying that.
I don't think we're yeah, I know you do. I don't think we're at Rich Rod level, right? Like on a scale of like, I don't know, like terrorist threats, right? We're at green, blue, yellow, orange, red. And then there's like Rich Rod level. We're not at Rich Rod level yet, okay? I think we're somewhere, me personally, me very specifically, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm like right around blue and yellow, right? Like I'm maize and blue, okay? I'm like right there in the middle. I'm not at green, like where everything's cool and honky-dory, but I'm not quite at orange and red yet. If he has a disastrous season this year, I will probably be orange and red, and then I will almost be to Rich Rod level. But I'm not quite there yet. And you're right. Every single year, it's the same story. Like Ohio State is always the overwhelming favorite to win the Big Ten. At some point, Jim Harbaugh has to step up, and he's got to take down Ohio State. He's got to take down Michigan State. He's got to beat his rivals. That's the big issue. I think all Michigan fans, I think we can all come to Jesus and sit at the same table and eat from the same bread when we all say we need to beat our rivals. You have to. You have to. And he's not done a very good job of doing that. You have a couple of games every single year, and you lose those important games. It's not good. It's not good enough. If you're a Michigan fan, that should not be good enough for you. I mean, if we were to go through and we were to name, I don't know, the elite of the elite head coaches in college football, I think it would start down in Alabama.
Nick Saban, Urban Meyer. And that's it for elite. And then now maybe.
Well, what about Dabo Swinney?
That's it.
Because I think Dabo Swinney has done it long enough, and he's won a national championship.
Those are the big
and
three.
He's done it good enough. Those are the big three. Jim Harbaugh's not in that class.
Not yet.
After that, it would probably be like Jimbo Fisher, right? He won a national title. He's been really productive for a really long time. And would you say Jim Harbaugh falls into that class? Because I don't think so.
Right.
I not at this time. I think Jim Harbaugh's a very good football coach. You've seen what he was able to do with the San Francisco 49ers. He was able to take these grown men and get them all to follow him, and he sat there and he led them to basically a touchdown away from winning a Super Bowl. He just hasn't translated yet on the college football field.
Now, you pose this question, is it disrespectful to the entire Big Ten that Vegas has Ohio State as a 10-11 odds favorite to win the Big Ten? And I say, no, it's not a disrespect at all. Ohio State is overwhelmingly better. They have the talent. They have the operation now where if a starting quarterback goes down, they can go into their rival's home and win. That's where the talent level is with a great head coach who has multiple.
I mean, they can lose their starting quarterback and they still pull out victories.
Exactly. He's got multiple national titles. Now, granted, in terms of the validity of some of them? Do you question his his ethics? Maybe Urban Meyer might be doing
he recruits.
maybe the way he recruits, maybe some of those funny handshakes. But in the end, that's here nor there. At this point in time, he's the coach of Ohio State. He is the standard. And every single year that Phil Steele writes his Bible, or every prognosticator writes who he thinks is going to win the Big Ten, if you don't put anybody but Ohio State, you look like a fool.
And I think you're right. But I think it's total disrespect to the entire Big Ten because there's such an overwhelming favorite. If you go and you look at the ACC, Clemson's only a 5-9 favorite, right? I mean, they're not overwhelming. They're the favorite, but they're not overwhelming. Like he's saying Ohio State is a dead nuts lock. You basically have to bet $110 to win 100 is what he's saying. You've got to put more money up to win less money. He's saying they are the absolute, like, nobody should beat them. It's them. They're going to Indy, and then they're going to go play in the playoffs. If you even go and you look at the SEC, which, like, this blows my mind, right? Let me see if I can find it here. So you look at the SEC, even Alabama's a 5-8 favorite.
But barring injury, do you see another squad, another collection of talent that can rise up and compete with Ohio State? Most people are saying Penn State, Wisconsin, maybe Michigan, but would you have confidence in betting anybody?
Michigan State.
Michigan State?
I think the Big Ten, right now, the Big Ten, the way it is set up, I think the Big Ten is one of the toughest football conferences in all the land. All right? And the reason I say that is Wisconsin's a very good team. I think Michigan is a very good team. They have to figure some things out, but I think they're a very good team. Penn State, you see what they did last year. When Franklin's recruiting, he does an awesome job, and he can coach. I think they're a good team. All right? I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think they lost a lot when Saquon left. Michigan State, I have no idea why they're a 12-1 favorite here. Like, total disrespect to me.
Yeah,
like,
that's odd.
It really upsets me as a Michigan fan, right? For you. I'm upset for you. I'm not so much upset that they're 12-1. I'm upset for you.
It should be equal, right? Michigan State should be equal 6-1 odds, right?
I could make the argument that Michigan State should be ranked higher than Michigan. Because I think Michigan State right now, going into the season, is a better football team than Michigan. You know what you have at quarterback. You know you're going to have a good defense. You know what you have at running back. The big questions for Michigan State right now, I think, how does that offensive line come back this year?
And if LJ Scott gets hurt, there's not a lot of depth at running back.
Exactly. So, and then Iowa and Nebraska. Iowa's always a thorn in everybody's side, and I think Nebraska is going to be a lot better this year because they got Scott Frost. I mean, I just went through and I named over half the Big Ten.
Okay, so you got $1,000. You take Ohio State or the field?
I would take the field. I would take the field. I just, because again, so is this to win the Big Ten outright, or is this to go? I guess if you win the Big Ten, you're going to play for the playoffs. So
win in Indy, win the dance in Indy.
I think Wisconsin's got a very easy road there, right? I mean, who are you going up against? Minnesota? Is that what we're talking about here? So I think Wisconsin's got an easy road. I think Wisconsin, all they have to do is beat Ohio State, and that's if they get to Indy. Michigan's got a tough road to hoe. This is probably Michigan's toughest schedule they've had in probably 25 years.
Okay.
You start on the road at Notre Dame. You've got to play at Michigan State, at Ohio State. You're bringing in Wisconsin. You're bringing in Penn State. That's a tough road to hoe.
Okay.
All right?
Being that you like to talk about chicks at the bar, I'm willing to make a $10 beer bet, 2 beers, saying that I'll take Ohio State. Yeah, I'll take Ohio State. You take the field. $10.
All right,
simple.
Cool. Yeah,
you pay the bar tab because I'm a lightweight. 2 beers will get me where I need to go for the most time. Especially with man. Let me tell you something. Real quickly, sidetrack here. When you get older, you put on a pound. It takes 3 weeks to get it off.
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah, forget it. Forget it. So I'm only a 2 beer minimum. So and then now you're getting old when you're like, damn, Michelob Ultra is the best. It's only got like 2 grams of carbs, 90 calories. Give me 2. But
it
bro,
tastes like water,
bro. You can sip 2 of them and not feel like you're gonna plop down and take a nap. So Doc is old as fuck. I'm like, Michelob Ultra is the shit.
Oh, dude, what's happened to you?
Dude, you gain weight.
Michelob Ultra and hookah, and you're done.
I'm good.
Done.
All right, give me Ohio State. I got respect for Ohio State, though, to be honest.
Hey, I do too. Until somebody beats them, they're the best in the land, or at least in the Big Ten. But I think it's disrespectful for them to be that overwhelming of a favorite. There is nobody else in college football right now. And I just said, I think the Big Ten is the toughest conference in football. There is nobody in the Big Ten or nobody else in all of college football that is that overwhelming of a favorite.
Right.
And I think that's disrespectful to teams like Wisconsin, Michigan State, Iowa, Nebraska. Those teams, Penn State, those teams are going to make Ohio State's run very difficult.
Okay, you can make the argument Ohio State is maybe a little overhyped, but when it comes to the season, you will see. Now, the case for Michigan State this year, if you want to make it, is that they play a lot of their tough games at home, and that's a good thing. And I'm excited. Michigan has the tough game right up front. You got to see what's going to happen. Obviously, it's going to be Shea Patterson. They won't announce it, obviously, probably till the day of, but that's a huge game. And I do believe that people are starting to notice that Michigan State could be on that collision course for that October game where they both might be in that position where one or the other, when they lose the game, is going to wreck this. Their season will be wrecked.
Yeah,
I think
you're
that,
right.
Right?
I think you're spot on. If you look at the way the schedules lay out for both teams,
can we get to August, man? Can we get to August?
It is a collision course. It is looking at that date, and it's going to be madness.
And it's in East Lansing. And if Michigan loses, oh my God, I can't wait.
What if Michigan State loses? Wasn't the last time that Michigan played in Michigan State?
Yeah, they handled their business.
Wait, who won that game?
Yeah.
I remember Jabril Peppers sealing the deal on a fumbled 2-point conversion, running it all the way back.
Hey,
so
even,
I don't know, man.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while.
That's right. Jeez.
All right, let's take our final
I'm gonna
time.
need Jim Harbaugh to find a couple nuts. Squirrel them away, bro. Let's get some dubs.
Let's take our final timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk some Red Wings. We want to make sure a couple players are on this roster, but with what we're looking at, there might be some doubt as to if the Young Cats are even going to make the roster. We'll see what's going on with that. We'll talk some Red Wings to finish out this podcast. Thank you so much for downloading shows on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thanks again to everybody who's been downloading the various podcasts on our platform. The free and easy way to help support the network, to help keep the lights on, the microphones hot here in our Sterling Heights studio. Just go check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's the hub of the operation. You can take care of all your online shopping needs, buy Detroit sports tickets. If you're prone to shop online, spend a bunch of money, just click through the Amazon banner at our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We greatly appreciate all the support. We greatly appreciate all the interaction on Twitter, on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Thank you so much. Again, our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. So, cuz the people have spoken, they want you to host a hockey podcast. They loved the Doc's takes on the Red Wings, and they said, Adam did a good job, too, as well last week. Mikey P came in and gave us some feedback, and he said, you guys did a good job. We act like we can kind of spit some takes and keep it interesting, and I was happy to hear that.
Yeah, a lot of Red Wing love lately. It really surprised me.
Really?
Because Red Wings don't get a lot of traction. It's the middle of the season. They're on like a 15-game win streak, and they're setting records. We try talking about it, dial tones all day long. But we sit there, we go into an NHL draft, we go hire some free agents, bring them in, and next thing you know, everybody wants to talk about stuff. So I have no idea how the coin has flipped, but it's flipped. And the Red Wings have, once again, was this fourth week in a row, they have found their way onto our rundown sheet.
That's good, and why not? And maybe even I will prod and poke at him to do another podcast, because 2 is not enough. I mean, every host has to have 3 or 4. I mean, why not?
Right. How many do you have? You have everything.
7.
Everything on this network, right?
Oh, my goodness. Now, before we talk about Rasmussen and Zadina, I'm definitely curious to get your take on what do you think about Andreas Athanasiou as a player? I was kind of surprised that he actually signed for 2 more years here, just based on the way he's been treated here. I would think, well, maybe he could test the waters elsewhere, but people are saying that the signing took place. Maybe there's room for him to actually be traded now as trade bait, and maybe he won't be on this team. But where do you see the future of this guy? He seems to have talent, but according to the Red Wings, he just lacks being a complete hockey player. There are some lapses defensively, but his speed, his shot, the quality player that he could become leads me to believe that there's an opportunity for him to have success here. But what's your take on Andreas Athanasiou as a player on the Red Wings?
I like him. I like what he brings to the team. It's not every day that you have a guy who can basically go 0 to 60 like that. And he's that guy. He can do that. Now, there are lapses defensively. not every team in the NHL plays as stringent of a defensive system as the Red Wings like to try to implement. Now, that being said, I think sometimes they hold certain players more accountable than they hold other players. I don't think Dylan Larkin's any great shakes on the defensive end, but he tends to get away with his lapses. Now, Andreas Athanasiou, not so much. I think he's going to be a 20-plus goal scorer. I think he's a guy who has the speed to get things done, get around guys, and be dangerous. There are things that he needs to develop and he needs to mature, but so does what? He's like 24. So does every other 24-year-old. Do you know what I'm saying? He's a young player. He's only played, a season and a half, basically?
Do you see his future with the winged wheel on his chest?
No, I don't. And I think there's a lot of hard feelings there because of the way Ken Holland treated him last year and the way things got done with his contract last year and the way things got done going into this year. So there's been all this talk and all this speculation about him getting traded. So I don't see him being on this roster too much longer. I could see him starting the season wearing the red and white sweater, but by the time the trade deadline comes around, I'm going to assume he will be long gone.
Will he make the Red Wings pay? Do you think he'll come back and be somebody that can be a 50, 60-point guy, can be productive, he'll evolve eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think he's going to be a 20-goal scorer in this league, and that's purely based on his speed. He has the ability to turn guys inside out and get around them because he's so quick. He can make things happen. On top of that, if he can develop his hands a little bit more, be a little bit more of a deft passer and a guy who can score a little bit more, he's going to be lights out. He's going to be awesome. I don't think he's going to be a superstar in this league, so let's not get it twisted and get it crossed up here. But I think he's going to be a very good player in this league, and I think he's going to be very productive. I just don't think he's going to be productive or as productive as we would like here in Detroit. I could totally see him going to Las Vegas with the style of play that they play. They're up on the forecheck all the time, trying to force turnovers. He's a guy who I think could be up in that forecheck, forcing those turnovers, and then capitalizing on loose pucks. And they play such a north-south game where they're just racing up and down, up and down, up and down, that it would go really, really well for him. Honestly, with everything that Vegas gave up to get Tatar, I'm really surprised they didn't go after Athanasiou, try to work out some type of extension with him, because I think he would thrive in that system under Gerard Gallant. I think he'd be much better there. Now,
there was a little bit of hubbub regarding where Zadina could play because his old team said, well, if he's not in the NHL, we want him to come back, I think, to Halifax. And but the Red Wings got him signed. He's in the fold, and everybody's looking to Zadina and Rasmussen to be on the main roster when the season starts. But, with the Red Wings, that's the biggest point of contention is, do they, slow the progress down of these two cats? I think Rasmussen, if you want to say of the two, if you pick one who's going to be on the roster, I think it'd be Rasmussen over Zadina. But I think just based on what we've seen so far, the hype is kind of starting to get behind, Zadina to be somebody that can be productive and get on the 25-man roster.
I really think a lot of fans, and especially the media, were really shocked and kind of taken aback by his performance in their summer camp that they just had. So I think he's a very talented guy. But if I had to pick one or the other to make this team, it would probably be Rasmussen over Zadina. My point is, I think it's an injustice if both these guys are left off this roster. Looking at what they're bringing back, I think we can both agree. Both those guys make this team better. And by adding those guys and say, I don't know, are those two guys better than, I don't know, Glenn Denning? I think so. Are those guys better than Darren Helm? Now, I know Darren Helm does a lot of little things that maybe aren't talked about, but I think those two guys are a lot more lethal than Darren Helm is. I think they're both better than Martin Furk. Both better than Witkowski. Witkowski's in there to kind of be a thumper. He's not necessarily a goal scorer. He's in there to kind of protect guys. But I think those two guys are better than just about anybody else on this team. And if you mean to tell me that by going out and bringing in a guy like a Thomas Vanek, that's going to prevent you from being able to have these two guys on your roster, that's just Ken Holland being Ken Holland. And that's messed up. That is so messed up.
Okay, so you want both of them. The fans want both of them, but odds would tell you that probably one of them will be their opening night.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I think so. But again, at some point, I think Zadina will be on this team. My point is I want both of them opening night. I want them both there. I don't think that I think they both should be there. You need to see what they got. I mean, you drafted this guy. He was supposed to be a top 3 pick, and he fell to you at 6. What are we doing here? This guy should be starting. I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, you've seen what he can do with the puck. He's talented. He can score. That's the deal on this guy. He's got the right mentality. Anybody who tells you that, hey, you passed on me, I'm going to fill your net with pucks just to sit there and prove you wrong. I want that guy out there every single shift. If I can get him out there for 60 minutes in a 60-minute game, I'll play him 60 minutes. He's a guy who I want out there playing all the time. And so what? He's similar to Athanasiou, and he's not as defensively sound. I'm okay with that as long as the plus-minus bears out that he's a better player when he's on the ice than when he's on the bench. I'm cool with it. As long as he's scoring more than he's giving up, I'm cool with it.
And if you're a Red Wing fan, just look for a couple things here. If Helm and Glendening are traded, actually, then look for potentially both those guys to kind of slot in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All we want for the Red Wings is just a clear path to a rebuild. And it's starting to look like that. But at the same time, the problem with the Red Wings, as always, is they just want to mix in a couple veterans to teach these guys. And you and I are just both in the agreement that let the NHL teach them, let experience, let them get on the ice, let the coaches teach them. I don't think you need salaried people to, unfortunately, come in and take spots.
Honestly, when you look at this roster, if they've got guys on this roster that are older than you and I, that's a problem. That's an issue. You don't need those guys on your roster right now. You should be going young. And look, I get what Ken Holland says. You need a veteran in there to help lead the locker room. Okay, cool, bro. I hear you. But I don't care. You're not winning a Stanley Cup this year. You're probably not winning a Stanley Cup next year. Just want to see some competitive, entertaining hockey. So put out the best team you can put out there. And Henrik Zetterberg with a piano strapped to his back, breaking down, I don't think makes you that much better. And Thomas Vanek, who at times showed some dazzling hands and could score some goals, I don't think in the long run makes you a better team. I think for the short term, sure. But for the long run, no, it doesn't.
All right.
That's kind of where I'm at with it, man.
Great podcast, man. We just turn it on and 70 minutes just goes by just like that.
So
Good
quick.
podcast, sir. Yes, sir. You can follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Anything at all that you've heard today, any of the polls that you see that we post, feel free to respond. We read all the criticisms. We read all the critiques. And lately, thank you so much. We've read all the compliments. And that makes it really fun when you do an interview or you have a take and people are like, great, very funny, very spot on. And that's all we're trying to do is just be in the mix in Detroit sports. And we're more than that, and we know it. So thank you so much for your continued support. We're doing great things, and we want to continue to be involved and be in the mix.
And sorry, guys, we sound like a bunch of alcoholics on this podcast this week.
Sign of the times. You know what?
I don't know why.
You know what? There's nothing better to do really on a hot day than drink some booze.
It's got to be summertime, man. That's what it's got to be.
It's got to be. It's the summertime. We want to drink, and you know what? To be honest, Michigan people like to drink. There's a lot of bars.
Well,
if you drive
yeah.
around this, if you drive around the east side, there's a bar within every half mile.
It's
I'm like,
true.
how are all these bars? How are all these bars in business? You know why? Because there's patrons, there's asses in the seats ordering them.
That's right.
You know what? Good stuff. To round it out, definitely ask for your bill and ask for how much, you know what? If you're a bar out there, put your damn prices on there so we can at least, try and drink for cheap.
Can I get a PBR, please?
Yes, thank you very much. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. See everybody next Thursday, no doubt about it. Jim Harbaugh is Urban Meyer's bitch. Doc is old as fuck. I'm like, Michelob Ultra is the shit.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.